Hello, welcome to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Theodore Xavier. Welcome, Theodore. It's great to have you in the show. I'd like to know a bit more about your background. You're 29 or 28, and you're from Jesus Youth.
Yes, that's right. Thank you, Geraldine, for having me. So where do I start? So I'm originally from India. So my family is from South India, in the region known as Tamil Nadu. I was born in Chennai, and when I was 2 years old, I moved to Singapore. So I grew up in Singapore, and then when I was 8, I moved to Australia. So I've done majority of my background in Australia, basically grown up in Sydney. So I'm a Sydney boy.
Yeah. How long were you in Sydney for?
This year will be my 20th year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And I hear you were in Antioch.
Yes, that's right. So I was basically born a cradle Catholic, but we're what we would call Sunday Catholics. So we would go to church on a Sunday, and that's about it. And that was the majority of my life. And yeah, around when I was in year 10, started going to Antioch, which was in my local parish. So it was, the parish priest over there was very supportive of that and very encouraging of that. So
that's great.
Yeah.
And you came to a certain point where you had that renewal of faith. Was that around Antioch times or maybe later?
So for me, my faith has been very connected to my parents and especially my mom. So like I said, I was very much I've always known about God. I've always gone to church, but that was it. That was the limit to that. And around 2008, when I was 12 years old, my mom actually had a very much like a test of faith and a big conversion experience. So she actually got diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And, that was a very tough period for her. She didn't know how to handle it. And in that time, she really turned to God and turned to, the charismatic movement and spiritual healing for assurance and, for a bit of help. And in that time, she really had a infilling experience. So through that, and, of course, through medical practices, she was completely healed.
Wow.
So coming out of that, she became a very devout Catholic, a very on fire for Jesus. And seeing her, I knew that there was something there. And that made me question it, and that made me, I guess, stick close to the faith.
Wow. And you have also a sister?
Yes. Yeah, I forgot to mention her, actually. So yeah, I have an older sister called Theophil. She's 4 years older than me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so what did you see in your mum that was the charismatic? What were your reflections on the charismatic renewal?
I think it was just seeing, so after a conversion experience, she stopped eating meat. She basically said that, now her life is for God. And as a 12-year-old boy, I questioned that. But I could see the fire that she had. So, every morning she'd be, up very early doing her personal prayers. The Bible just became like a favorite hobby. So I'd always see her, open up the Bible, reading pages and pages. So seeing that fire, I wasn't really sure why it came because I hadn't experienced that yet personally. But I think I could see from her that was a big change in her.
That's great. And also, did you experience God through the Antioch movement?
Yes. So I definitely experienced God, and I experienced, I think, what it means to be a Catholic, especially in the modern setting. As a young person, I went to Catholic school, but there isn't many Catholics that are proudly Catholic or, outside of church, they can be quite hidden about their faith. But, Antioch was that first exposure where I could see, I was 16 at the time, but I could see, 22-year-olds all the way up to 30-year-olds being very proudly Catholic and proudly, spending their weekends, their Friday nights, coming together, coming to prayer, talking about God. And through them and through the love that they gave me, I was really able to feel God and feel, the love of Jesus.
Yeah. So Antioch's focus on the love of Jesus, is that what the big thing about Antioch?
There definitely, the love of God, love of Jesus is there, but I think they're always the big aspect was this should be led by the youth, for the youth, by the youth. And that was very cool to see because, we would have these weekends where we're bringing other people towards Antioch, and that was completely run by them. So all the talks, everything besides, we'd always have a priest to support us, but everything else was really led by them.
And after that, did you get involved in Jesus Youth?
Yes, so Jesus Youth came a little bit after that. So Antioch, I was there till year 12. But, around that time, I was starting to really struggle with my faith as well. And as you become older, you get more involved in the world and worldly pleasures, and you start questioning a lot of things. So Jesus Youth really came at a pivotal time in my life where they really gave me formation and they gave me an opportunity to experience Jesus.
Wow, that's amazing. And what do you think that youth need today?
What does the youth need? I think they need love, and I could definitely relate to that in my own life. I mean, if you want me to go into a bit of detail, growing up, my dad especially was very, I guess, a bit distant. He thought his responsibility as a father was making sure that we were financially secure, financially stable, but the emotional connection was very limited. So, that, and as well as some other experiences that I had very young as a baby, I really felt like I wasn't good enough, or that I wasn't worthy of love, or I wasn't worthy of attention. And, that came out in different ways. And I was always following the crowd, or, trying to prove myself to others. But coming to God and having my first God experience, that was when I truly felt the peace that Christ gives you. The peace that you are enough as you are. And I think that's what a lot of young people are craving right now, where, they're trying to find that love, they're trying to find that peace in any way possible.
That's inspiring, and we'll go for a break now. You've been watching Spirit of Life. Stay with us and we'll be back after the break. Hello, welcome back to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Theodore Xavier. Welcome back, Theodore. Now, you were sharing about your testimony, how you came to Jesus, and after you went through that stage where you were searching and going through youth and you're trying out different things. Do you want to say more about that and how you came to Jesus, a stronger faith?
Sure. So to expand, like I said, I mentioned my father, and, it was very hard for even my mom in their marriage as well, because they're very different people. And, after she had my sister, she was very fearful of having another child, because they were, personality-wise, they didn't really match. So even when, and they say that, when you're in the womb, scientifically, you can sometimes imbue a lot of your mother's feelings and mother's emotions. And she's told me, like very recently, that I've come to learn that when she was pregnant with me, she used to cry to my grandma saying, oh, I'm scared of having this child. I'm worried. And I think that feeling kind of got imparted into me. So, it's that very strong feeling that I wasn't good enough, that, that I wasn't necessary in this world, which is not true, of course. But sometimes, you can grow up with these misconceptions.
Yes.
Right?
No, it's true, because I've heard a lot of evidence, plus being a midwife, of people's feelings, absorbed by the child. But being a baby, they're kind of egocentric, meaning they usually think it's about me, there's something wrong with me or something,
That's right.
When they feel something bad, they think, oh, I'm bad,
Yeah.
So it's quite understandable that you picked up some of those emotions, and parents being human, they pick up these things.
That's right.
Isn't it?
And I wouldn't blame either of them, but, it's just
it's
how
humanity,
it is.
Isn't it?
So growing up, I think I was always striving for perfection, striving that, someone would say I'm good enough. And, it has its perks as well, because in that pursuit, I picked up a lot of different talents, a lot of different skills, such as like playing music, speaking in front of the crowd. I'm very multifaceted. I'm proud of that. But I think before it came from a place it came from a negative place. And as you get older, that striving becomes more intense. So for me, friends was always a big, very crucial aspect in my life. So I'd always try and follow my friends and do what they want me to do. And I fell into the trap of peer pressure quite easily. So as you get older, after high school, just getting into bad habits such as drinking, partying, and even drugs, all the things that the world promises you is what you need for comfort, what you need for peace. So that was basically my life for a few years in that period, where during the day or on Sundays I'm that good Catholic boy, but then during the week on Saturday night I'm out partying and following the crowd.
So you felt like you were living a bit of a double life?
Very much a double life. And through it all I never had a sense of peace at all. You're always, and this is something I always talk about now, where I feel like young people they have to go out now because they're chasing something. And they're chasing this almost temporary peace that you get. It might be at the peak of that party, but that peace doesn't last. And so they have to go back out again, the following week and chase it all over. And drug addiction and all those things follow because they're all chasing whatever that is. So that was my life for a very long time, and I guess I was very confused. I didn't know where to listen to or which way to go. And during that time is when I found Jesus Youth and Jesus, and it came in the form of a retreat. So it was almost a week-long retreat.
Wow.
Called Trendsetters, and essentially it was like a come to Jesus but also discipleship program. And like I said, I've always known Jesus, but in that week I really gave it a go, and I wanted to follow him. I wanted to walk with him, and I did. So I found him in confession, I found him in adoration, in inner healing.
Wow. And can you explain those three things to the audience?
Yes.
Those confession, adoration.
Sure. So confession is it's a sacrament. It's a Catholic sacrament where we come and we confess our sins, and we believe that God forgives anything that we do as long as we confess to him. And it essentially is just rebuilding that relationship, saying sorry and running back to the Father. Adoration is coming in before him in the Blessed Sacrament. So we believe that God is alive in the Blessed Sacrament. And I've had experiences very recently, in fact, which I'll detail later, where I saw that, where God was alive. So, and inner healing is very similar to that, but it's, I guess, asking God to heal me, because Jesus is the divine healer.
From the past hurts or
trauma, from past hurts.
And forgiveness, isn't it?
Exactly. So at the end of that, at the end of that week, I had this almost divine sense of peace, that for the first time in my life, I was enough.
Wow.
I was content. And that really changed my life, because once you experience that, you can't go back.
Yes. So you felt really secure in God's love.
I felt secure in God's love, and I felt, secure in his purpose for me, that I'm meant to be here. He's called me for something.
Yeah, that's great. And in Jesus you've also had a community of friends?
Yes. So even in Trendsetters, you do it together. So there's a group of people that they all go through a very similar experience. And, since then I can't say that I've had a complete 180 conversion experience, because even though you go through that experience, once you come back to the real world, the struggles of discipleship is still there.
Yes.
The struggles of going against the tide, and those things that I had as my comfort, such as my friends, was still there, and that need to fall under peer pressure, or the need to make sure that they like me, was very strong. But I think the Jesus Youth community and the elders in Jesus Youth and my friends really helped me, anchored me in my faith. You know, that even if I strayed too far, they would always bring me back. And, you know, I'm very grateful for that community,
Yeah.
that sense of
Wow.
love.
Thank you. And on that note, we'll go for a break.
Sounds good.
You've been watching Spirit of Life. Stay with us and we'll be back after the break. Hello, welcome back to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Theodore Xavier. Welcome back, Theodore. You were sharing about your conversion and then your touch with God, with Jesus Youth. And where have you gone since then? You know, the growth of your faith.
Sure. You know, like I said, once you meet Jesus, you're forever changed. But discipleship is another thing, and it does take a while to become a disciple of Jesus, you know, to say no to the world, to turn your back against the world. And that really was a struggle for me. And I think that's where community is so important, is having like-minded people around you, having those support structures around you. For me, it was always getting away from my sins, I guess, turning away from my sins and turning away from other influences in my life, bad influences in my life, I should say. But through it all, you know, God was always with me and he was always speaking to me. Like a very strong experience I had during adoration was, you know, I remember once really coming to him in adoration. And for those that don't know, you know, adoration is a form of spiritual practice. You know, it can be hard sometimes to just sit down. You know, as a kid, I couldn't sit for more than 2 minutes. So, you know, to really sit and look into Jesus, you know, that's when you get so much resistance, so many other thoughts come into your mind, you know, so many lies of the enemies come into your mind that you're not good enough, that you can't do this, that you're not strong enough. And, you know, I had an experience where I really went to him in fear, in doubt, and said, God, you know, like, I'm trying to be Christian, I'm trying to repent and turn away, but I keep falling into these sins. And, you know, the verse from Corinthians came into my mind. And I really felt like that was God speaking, you know, a verse from Paul's letter to the Corinthians where he says, you know, my grace is enough for you, you know, where you rejoice in your weakness, because when I'm weak, I am strong through him. And that really became a sort of promise that he gave me, that, you know, it's not you fighting this battle, it's me. But it was a process. It was a process. And I always say my faith was kind of like a sine curve, you know, it was always up, it'll go up, and then it'll go back down, go back up, go back down. But God was always pulling me closer, pulling me. And, you know, now I feel very much closer to him. And that's because of these spiritual disciplines, like going to mass, attending confession regularly, you know, all these things that really help you stable in your faith.
And your community keeping touch.
Exactly, community keeping touch, and, you know, elders praying over you and speaking into your lives, you know. Like, I know that it can be done now because I've seen people in their 30s, 40s leading very Christian lives, you know, with families, raising their kids in Christian ways. And once you see that in action, in reality, it really settles any doubts that you might have.
Yeah, so you got role models.
Exactly, great role models.
And with people who are willing, when you say talk into your life, do you mean discipline you or correct you or challenge you?
Challenge me, especially disciplining me, sharing their story and showing me that it can be done, you know, but definitely challenging and making sure that, you know, because I do struggle with opening up sometimes. So, you know, they give me that nudge to be like, what's going on? You know, let's dig deeper.
Yeah, which is a challenge for, I mean, a young man, you know, because maybe in Australia it's to be tough or to be cool and not open up. So that's great that you humble yourself and open yourself.
For sure. And the movement has been very powerful in my life. For those that don't know, you know, Jesus Youth came from Kerala, and it's now spread across many countries in this world because they very much believe in that every person should be a missionary. You know, we're all called for mission. We're all called to spread Jesus's message and his love to others. So they really give you that formation and give you that courage to speak out and, you know, go touch the people, be hands and feet of Jesus in this world.
That's amazing. That's good. So you're encouraged not only to receive, but also to give out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's both. You know, it's like give and take. We receive so that, you know, once our cup gets filled, we overflow into others.
And you have some prayer groups and small groups, kind of, is that part of Jesus Youth?
Yeah, so we have weekly prayer meetings. So in Melbourne, we have about 3 different prayer meetings in different areas of Melbourne. But yeah, weekly prayer meetings. We have retreats a few times in a year. We also get these opportunities, like I got very recently, to go out into mission and, you know, do some missionary work and things like that.
And what work did you do when you were on mission?
So I just got back from my trip and we went to Timor-Leste as a Jesus Youth. So 7 of us went over there to help the local, there's a sister over there called Sister Julie who's essentially trying to build Jesus Youth over there.
Oh, wow.
Because, you know, just to give a bit of background for Timor, the country's been under war for so long. It was under Portuguese rule till 1975, and then, you know, when they left, the Indonesians came and invaded. So they've only been an independent country for about 20 years.
Wow.
So there's a lot of brokenness, a lot of pain, a lot of anger, and very similar to any place, but especially there, you know, Jesus is needed. Jesus is the cure.
Yeah, that's great that you did that work. Spreading good news. And what activities did you do?
So the first half of their trip, so it was a 10-day trip. First half was we were helping the sister lead like a retreat. So it had about 400 university students coming to that. And essentially, you know, we were just ministering to them, you know, sharing our stories, counseling them if they needed it, praying over them if they requested it, and just being with them, you know, showing them that they are loved, they're enough. And we saw a lot of tremendous change. And, you know, they're foreigners. We have a language barrier. But by the end of it, it felt like I was leaving my brothers and sisters.
Wow,
you know,
you
behind.
got that close.
Yeah, we did.
Definitely
did.
Great job.
Yeah, so that was the first half. And then the second half was, you know, going out. So in Timor, the main city is Dili, and that's where all the students come to study. But a lot of their families live outside.
Yeah.
So we went out to their homes, to the remote areas to just preach the salvation message.
It's been fantastic hearing about all your, you know, your testimony and your mission work. I'd like to have you back next week.
Definitely. I'd love to be there.
You've been watching Spirit of Life. Join us next week. Goodbye and God bless you.